a blood sample in about 5 seconds, okay?
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're looking at 30 creepy and unsettling things that were found at violent crime scenes.
What's this?
Stacked dishes.
And each new assault led to ever-increasing fear in thousands of family homes.
The Golden State Killer was a master of psychological terror, and his most chilling signature weapon was dinnerware. After breaking into homes and binding his victims, the killer would stack ceramic plates or teacups on the backs of the bound men. He then whispered a terrifying ultimatum. If he heard the dishes rattle, he would kill everyone in the house. When police finally arrived, those precarious stacks of china were often still standing on the men, a silent testament to the hours of absolute terror that they were forced to endure. It's a haunting detail highlighting the sadistic control that Joseph DeAngelo exerted over his victims, turning mundane household items into instruments of fear.
He had an MO, and that was he would place these plates on the back of the husband and tell the husband, if I hear these plates rattle, I'm going to kill your wife and I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to kill you.
The introduction audio tape.
I'm going to tell you in detail why you have been kidnapped, what's going to happen to you, and how long you'll be here.
David Parker Ray didn't just own the so-called toy box. He even had an orientation for it. Investigators discovered a cassette tape that Ray played for his kidnapped victims as they regained consciousness. In it, Ray's calm and detached voice explained exactly where they were and what was about to happen, detailing the horrific devices that they were about to endure. While the physical tape was disturbing, the bureaucratic, almost professional way that he explained his sadistic plans makes it one of the creepiest pieces of audio evidence ever recovered. It turned a chaotic crime scene into a calculated nightmare, proving Ray had ritualized his violence. He's basically Jigsaw in real life.
That is scary. Did you hear that voice? He recorded that tape in July 23rd, 1993. I can't imagine how many women heard that tape.
Purple shrouds and Nikes.
This video reveals the scene that unfolded when the first responding deputies entered the house.
As soon as I opened up that door, I was just overcome with the smell of decomposing bodies.
When police entered the rented mansion of the Heaven's Gate cult, they found 39 bodies, but it was the uniformity of the scene that was truly eerie. Each dead member was dressed in identical black shirts and sweatpants and covered with square purple shrouds. Most famously, they were all wearing brand new black and white Nike Decades. The pristine, orderly nature of the scene, with victims laid out in bunk beds as if sleeping, created a surreal tableau of mass death. This wasn't a chaotic struggle. It was a planned exit. The visual of those matching sneakers sticking out from under purple cloths remains one of the most unsettling images in criminal history, symbolizing the fatal devotion of the deceased cult members.
Every room that you would go into, there were more bodies.
Clown suits.
Gacy was considered an upstanding key member of his small community. He was popular and involved in politics. At weekends, he would even dress as a clown and perform for children at parties and at local hospitals.
John Wayne Gacy is remembered as one of history's most deceptive killers, posing as a community pillar while also hiding 29 corpses around his house. During the search of his home, investigators found custom-made costumes for his alter ego Pogo the Clown. While owning clown suits isn't illegal, finding them in the same house where dozens of young men were murdered and buried added a layer of nightmarish irony to the story. It also solidified the terrifying killer clown archetype in the public consciousness forever. Seeing those colorful, ruffled outfits hanging in the closet, knowing the monster who wore them committed atrocities just feet away, turned a standard police search into a scene straight out of a horror movie.
There's just something horrifically sinister and monstrous about this figure of Pogo. Just an element that raises Gacy to the level of a kind of mythic American monster.
The ransom note.
Did the handwriting look familiar to you at all? Had you seen it ever before?
No. I feel like the listen carefully is very distinct, and I've never really seen that.
The murder of 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey is famous for a number of reasons, including the bizarre ransom note. Police found a 2.5-page ransom note demanding the oddly precise number of $118,000. What makes this creepy is that the note was written on a notepad from inside the house. The idea that the intruder sat there long enough to draft a rambling manifesto while the family slept upstairs is deeply unsettling. Of course, there's also an even creepier theory, that it was JonBenet's own mother who wrote the note, creating a fake kidnapper story to cover up either a crime or an accident. Either way, this stationary object became the center of a media firestorm, and it hasn't let up since.
You will withdraw $118,000 from your account.
I have never seen a ransom kidnapping that asks for such a specific amount of money.
Mummified dolls.
In Russia, the mere mention of the name Anatoly Moskvin still elicits responses of horror and disgust amongst its citizens.
In 2011, Russian police raided the apartment of historian Anatoly Moskvin and found what looked like a collection of large antique dolls. They were dressed in knee-high boots and dresses, their faces wrapped in fabric. But upon closer inspection, these dolls were revealed to be the mummified bodies of 26 young girls that Moskvin had dug up from local cemeteries. He lived with them, threw them birthday parties, and even installed music boxes inside their chest cavities. The realization that these figures were actually human remains, lovingly preserved and displayed in a cramped apartment, horrified the world. It is a singular example of both delusion and desecration.
So, based on what we now know, is he good, evil, or just insane? Perhaps he is all of the above, and the better question is, how much of each is he?
The kitchen tableau.
There's a pot on the stove. I think I might have even said to Scotty, I'll give you one guess where the head is.
Catherine Knight became the first Australian woman sentenced to life without parole, and the crime scene explains why. When police arrived at the home of her partner, John Price, they found his skinned body hanging from a doorframe. But the most grotesque discovery was in the kitchen. On the stove, police noticed a hot pot. They peered inside and saw the victim's head staring back at them, being cooked with some vegetables. Nearby were 2 plates with place names. Catherine was intending on serving John to his own children. It was a scene of domestic horror that seasoned officers could never unsee, and this culinary nightmare elevated the crime from domestic homicide to something unspeakably evil.
On the table, there was a couple of plates that had meals where he prepared vegetables and meat cooked, sitting there.
Blocked drains.
So I said, well, let's have another haul around inside the drain, get anything else that's in there. And the scenes of crime officer that I had with me managed to pull out 3 or 4 pieces of flesh, each about 4 inches long, 1 inch wide, and 3 little bones.
In 1983, residents at 23 Cranley Gardens in London complained about some blocked pipes. When a plumber opened the drain cover, he didn't find a mass of hair. He found human flesh and small bones. When the flesh was conclusively identified as human, the plumber traced its origin to the upstairs flat. This grim discovery led police straight to the doorstep of Dennis Nielsen. It turned out that Nielsen had been flushing the remains of his victims down the toilet for months until the pipes finally clogged under the pressure. It is a disgusting reminder that sometimes the clues to a crime are hidden in the most mundane infrastructure.
He said it's human, and he said, by pure luck, you've brought me a piece of neck, off the neck, and your victim has been strangled. He said, there's a clear ligature mark on this piece of flesh.
The M ladies.
Appallingly, the video showed in vivid detail the depths of depravity that Lake and Ing indulged in.
Leonard Lake and Charles Ing were responsible for a macabre spree in California, murdering between 11 and 25 people. When police searched Lake's remote cabin/killing dungeon, they found a horrifying series of videocassettes labeled M Ladies. These tapes showed Lake and Ing psychologically and physically tormenting their many female victims. Finding the tapes transformed the case from a police investigation into a documented nightmare of sadism. Watching the fear in the victims' eyes on those grainy recordings gave investigators a direct window into the hell they endured. They serve as a permanent witness to their unimaginable suffering, making the tapes perhaps the most disturbing items found at the compound. And there were a lot.
That brings it to a whole new level. It was on a horrific level why you would want to tape this stuff, but if you view those tapes, they're quite disturbing.
The wall of photos.
I was watching the news and I was like, damn, I was with the Grim Sleeper.
When police arrested the so-called Grim Sleeper, Lonnie Franklin Jr., they found a hoard of souvenirs in his garage. Stashed away were over 1,000 photos and hundreds of hours of video depicting Franklin with women in various states of unconsciousness or distress. Police were forced to release 180 of these disturbing photos to the public in a desperate attempt to identify the women. The sheer volume of the collection was a chilling indicator of just how long he had operated in the shadows. This wall of faces represented literal decades of violence, turning what otherwise appeared as a cluttered garage into a gallery of horrors.
He lived on 81st and Western, and that was the epicenter of where all the murders took place.
Stockings.
It would have made a frightening Hitchcock thriller if the crimes hadn't been real. A killer was stalking Boston women.
The case of the Boston Strangler has long been contested in American true crime. The perpetrator killed 13 women in the greater Boston area throughout the early 1960s. While blame has often been placed on a man named Albert DeSalvo, his guilt remains a divisive subject. The Strangler earned his name through his modus operandi, which was to strangle his victims using nylon stockings.
Open up! If you don't open the door, I'm gonna call the cops.
These garments were often recovered at the scene, and some were photographed. Perhaps the most famous case was that of Joanne Graff, the Strangler's penultimate victim.
Look, even the tile is falling apart.
Nylon stockings were found at the scene, with writer Gerald Frank stating that they were tied in, quote, an elaborate flowing bow, like a circus clown's bow tie. The tapes of Ricardo Lopez.
This is being sent off tomorrow, probably. Well, actually, technically today. If and when I feel great about it.
Perhaps better known as the Bjork Stalker, Ricardo Lopez was a pest exterminator who became infamous for his obsession with the Icelandic singer. In 1996, Lopez grew incensed that Bjork was in a relationship and mailed an explosive package to her residence in London. Throughout this journey, Lopez kept a personal video diary detailing his methods and motivations. He recorded over 20 hours of footage spread across 11 tapes, with each spanning around 2 hours. In the final one, Lopez takes his own life on camera. Neighbors reported a rotten smell coming from his apartment, where police officers discovered the tapes. They also informed Scotland Yard about the explosive device, which was safely found and detonated.
Am I gonna eat one more time? No, I don't think so.
A handwritten warning.
On June 12, 1977, 8-year-old Lori Farmer, 9-year-old Michelle Gousset, and 10-year-old Denise Milner set off for camp, but never came home.
On the morning of June 13, 1977, the bodies of 3 Girl Scouts were found near the showers of Oklahoma's Camp Scott. The camp was immediately evacuated, and investigators uncovered various clues, including a flashlight and a bloody footprint.
Agent Linville also found tape and plastic material used to cover the flashlight lens, 2 photographs of women, a red pair of lace panties, and the glasses taken from the counselor's tent in Kiowa unit.
But a far more malicious clue was sent to Camp Scott less than 2 months prior to the killings. A counselor returned to her personal area and found that her belongings had been thrown around. She also discovered a handwritten note that read, quote, "We are on a mission to kill 3 girls in Tent 1. The note was taken to the camp's director, but it was dismissed as a prank and no action was taken. To date, the murders officially remain unsolved.
It will probably never be brought to an end because of people and their opinions and the way they think.
The Son of Sam letter.
I want you to go out and kill. Kill! Kill! Kill!
David Berkowitz, also known as the Son of Sam, terrorized New York City in the mid-70s, killing and wounding many with his .44 caliber revolver. On April 17, 1977, Berkowitz committed the double murder of Valentina Suriani and Alexander Esau, bringing his body count to 5. Up to this point, he was known as the .44 caliber killer. However, that changed when authorities found a handwritten note by Berkowitz, in which he not only taunted the police force, but also identified himself as the Son of Sam. The letter is incredibly eerie, not just for its taunting content, but also its frequent misspellings, grammatical errors, and rambling, often of an incoherent nature. It provides a glimpse into the troubled mind of its author.
You thought what you were doing was right? It was not right, but that somehow this had some kind of plan.
A morbid Hello Kitty doll. On March 17, 1999, a nightclub hostess named Fan Man Yi was kidnapped by Triad member Chan Man Lok. The kidnapping was in retaliation for fans stealing his wallet. The hostess was taken to an apartment and imprisoned for a month, where she was forced to endure extreme trauma, which eventually led to her death from shock. The captors disposed of her body in grisly fashion and placed some of her remains inside a large Hello Kitty mermaid doll. Here it remained for several weeks. Eventually, one of the captors, who was burdened by guilt, went to the police and led them to the scene of the crime. It was there that responding officers found the doll with its morbid contents. BTK's Polaroids.
The 3 photos are of a woman's dead body. The driver's license belongs to Vicki Wegerly, killed in her home in 1986.
After at least 10 victims and many long years, the BTK killer, real name Dennis Rader, was finally caught on February 25, 2005. Virtually every place associated with Rader became an instant crime scene, including his church, house, and business. And in all 3 places, investigators found disturbing evidence of his crimes.
He had dolls that he used to help facilitate his imagination, and he would experiment.
Rader had personally taken Polaroids of his victims in various stages of distress and decomposition, and stored these photos throughout the aforementioned locations. The macabre images served as irrefutable proof of his guilt and helped secure a conviction and sentence of 10 consecutive life terms.
I always had the tripod, and so I rigged that up, and lo and behold, I could take pictures of myself.
Footprints in the snow. It's rare that a victim finds clues at their own future crime scene, but it does happen. Case in point, the infamous Hinterkaifeck murders. A very creepy and notorious case. It saw an unknown assailant killing 5 members of the Gruber family and their maid on the night of March 31st, 1922. Unfortunately, there were many portents that Patriarch Andreas Gruber failed to heed. These included noises in the attic and a newspaper from Munich that Gruber thought was dropped by the mailman. But the creepiest clue was a set of human footprints in the snow leading from the nearby forest to the farm. It's now believed that these possibly belonged to the perpetrator who claimed the lives of the family.
I'm coming down!
Pentagrams.
Why did you kill those people?
No comments. No comments. I cannot answer that at this time.
Richard Ramirez, better known as the Night Stalker, had a strange fascination with pentagrams. He famously drew one on his hand during his initial court appearance, but that wasn't the first time law enforcement encountered the symbol in this case. Back on May 29, 1985, Ramirez assaulted sisters Mabel Bell and Florence Lang in their home. Following the attack, he stole Bell's lipstick and drew 2 pentagrams on the bedroom walls.
He just left so much destruction and lives.
But the thing that was so frightening about it from like the public's point of view, remembering back then, was that it was all so random.
He continued this MO when he attacked married couple Peter and Barbara Pan on the night of August 18th. After shooting them both, Ramirez grabbed some lipstick and drew a pentagram on the bedroom wall along with the phrase, "Jack the Knife."
I think she was spared because he said, "Get on your hands and knees and say you love Satan." And she said, I just looked in the eye and says, "No, I will not do that. I believe in Jesus Christ."
Bloody writings. While the Manson family is notorious for killing Sharon Tate, their true victim count is actually much higher. Throughout the summer of 1969, the family killed 9 individuals, although they're suspected of more. At 3 of these crime scenes, various messages were written in the victim's blood. After murdering Gary Hinman, one member wrote the phrase "political piggy" on the wall. At the infamous Tate crime scene, Susan Atkins wrote "pig" on the front door.
You go around there, see if there's a back entrance. Go.
The last and perhaps most famous message was left at the La Bianca scene. Patricia Krenwinkel wrote the phrases "rise," "death to pigs," and "helter skelter." The latter of these was misspelled and became the eventual title of Vincent Bugliosi and Kurt Gentry's landmark book. A Drum of Acid.
A 57-gallon vat filled with acid.
Jeffrey Dahmer is undoubtedly one of the most notorious killers in American history, his very name synonymous with evil. Dahmer took 17 lives between 1978 and 1991, with the most famous crimes occurring inside of his Milwaukee apartment. He often did unspeakable things to his victims' bodies and used large quantities of acid to accomplish his grotesque goals.
You gotta put that knife down.
Shortly after Dahmer's capture, investigators found a 57-gallon drum in the corner of his apartment. Inside the drum was a powerful acid solution and the remains of 3 people. This was just one of the many lurid objects taken from Dahmer's residence. As the chief medical examiner stated, it was more like dismantling someone's museum than an actual crime scene.
I wish it would go away. I wish there was some way to completely get rid of the compulsive thoughts, the feelings.
Bathroom hair. The hair in question here actually wasn't from the criminal associated with the case, Ted Kaczynski, also known as the Unabomber.
For nearly 2 decades, a mathematical genius with delusions of single-handedly destroying industrial society planted or mailed powerful bombs to unsuspecting, innocent victims.
Here, Kaczynski actually planted someone else's hair that he found in a bus station bathroom into an explosive package in order to throw authorities off the scent of the case.
We knew we were dealing with a disgruntled genius. We just didn't know how smart or how angry he truly was, or how far he'd go.
Although the hair didn't belong to the Unabomber, utilizing someone else's locks in this way is not only gross, but creepy as well. Never mind the possibility of the feds knocking at your door thinking that you're somehow involved with such a dangerous madman.
He was given 4 life sentences plus 30 years. He would never be eligible for parole.
Message machete. There was no questioning the intentions of one Prince Hepburn after the forensic report of this crime scene came back from the lab.
After just over an hour of deliberations, a jury has determined that Prince Hepburn is guilty of killing his girlfriend Nellie Brown Cox 2 years ago.
This is because Hepburn actually left behind the murder weapon with a very specific pair of messages written about both the actual and intended victims. A bloody machete was found at the scene where Hepburn murdered his girlfriend with the phrase, "This is what cheaters get," scrawled on the blade. On the other side was a message for the other potential victim. It's the level of morbidity that only tends to be seen in horror movies, but in this case, the horror was very, very real.
When the verdict was handed down, Hepburn appeared calm, the same way he had appeared throughout the trial.
Tarot cards. The Beltway snipers terrorized the Washington, D.C. area back in 2002, utilizing long-distance rifles to maximize the cold and detached distances between them and their victims.
Go. Go.
John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo utilized different calling cards over the course of their terror spree. But one particularly chilling moment occurred after the October 7th shooting of Iron Brown. Malvo and Muhammad left the death tarot card at the crime scene, inscribed with the words, "Do not release to the press. For you, Mr. Police, and call me God."
Leads that once didn't mean anything started to bring the case together.
It was creepy and deeply disturbing, to say the least.
I mean, I was a monster. If you look up the definition, I mean, that's what a monster is. I was a ghoul. I was a thief. I stole people's lives.
A deadly plea.
The random savagery of the lipstick killer didn't jibe with a city known for its strong, safe neighborhoods.
The legal case of the lipstick killer, William Herons, was a mess, featuring inconsistent prosecution, shoddy police work, and illegalities behind the scenes.
It was then, with his own lawyers encouraging him, that he stopped fighting and decided to take the rap for 3 murders he did not commit.
There are some who feel that Herons wasn't even the notorious serial killer who left a creepy moniker-defining message at the scene of a crime. It was scrawled on a victim's apartment wall, and it said, quote, "For heaven's sake, catch me before I kill more. I cannot control myself." Herons was ultimately sentenced to life in prison for 3 separate murders, although he died in prison maintaining that his confession was coerced.
He insisted he had confessed solely to save himself from the electric chair, not because he was guilty.
Legos. The murder of Lucille Johnson in 1991 was notable right off the bat for the bevy of Lego bricks scattered at the scene of the crime.
Investigators say it took them 23 years to catch a break in this cold case. The game-changing clues, new DNA evidence, and Lego toys that were found at the crime scene.
Moreover, DNA results conducted many years later led authorities to believe that Johnson's murderer, John Sansing, had brought his son along with him that day.
Investigators say it was Sansing's son's fingerprints found on the Lego toys, placing the child at the murder scene.
That young child has been tormented with these visions all these years.
As a result, the mental image is that Sansing's son was innocently playing with the Legos while his father was off committing a truly heinous act.
Occasionally, we run into individuals who are evil. The individual that is being charged with this crime today can only be described as that.
Dead driver's license. David Kaik was unapologetic after murdering his ex-girlfriend in 2014. So much so that he posted his grotesque handiwork to the internet.
He was drinking beer while police were hunting for him and talking about his dead girlfriend as if she was still alive.
It was known as the 4chan murder in the press after Kaik uploaded photos of the crime and text apparently lamenting the fact that, quote, "It's way harder to strangle someone to death than it looks on the movies." Additionally, Kaik wrote messages around the house, including bad news on blinds in the home and "she killed me first" on a framed photo. Finally, Kaik scrawled out a blunt statement on his ex's driver's license, one that simply said, "dead."
And in his confession note, Kaik also said, quote, "Running from the cops was so much fun." Then he signed his initials DK.
A promise to return. She may currently live under an alias, but the woman born Mary Bell possesses the gruesome distinction of being Britain's youngest female killer.
Oh, she was wicked. She was. I think there's no question about it.
Bell was still a preteen when she strangled the first of her 2 victims back in 1968. By all accounts, Bell's home life was full of trauma and mistreatment at the hands of her mother, and she displayed troubling and dangerous behavior for some time before killing her first victim, Martin Brown.
She was deeply embedded in a sort of petty crime environment, an environment in which violence against each other was something that was almost acceptable and the norm.
Later, Bell and an accomplice would not only harass Brown's mother prior to her son's funeral, but they also left taunting notes to police at a nearby nursery they vandalized. One of the notes read, "I murder so that I may come back."
The general tenor of these notes was to tease and provoke the police because the police weren't making any progress.
Grisly devices. Dean Corll was a notorious serial killer known by a number of monikers, including the Pied Piper and the Candyman.
Dean Corll earned the nickname the Candyman because his younger days, his family owned a candy company, a small candy company located in the Heights. And he often gave candy away to kids in the neighborhood.
Corll's methodology was brutal, and he even had a pair of young accomplices that assisted in his luring, torturing, and murdering his victims. These victims would often be handcuffed to a plywood board and harmed by Corll prior to their deaths. And it was this torture board that was found at the scene when the Candyman met his demise at the hands of one of these aforementioned accomplices, Elmer Wayne Henley.
Elmer Wayne Henley's trial was a media circus. The only thing I can equate it to was his O.J. Simpson trial without the television in the courtroom.
Ciphers. A cipher is a coded message that's deliberately disguised in order to convey a hidden message. There have been a number of killers over the years that have communicated in ciphers, most notably the Zodiac.
It's okay. This is all gonna be okay.
The case of Ricky McCormack is another involving ciphers, and one that also remains unsolved. Here, the message was found on McCormack's body after his remains were found in a Missouri cornfield on June 30th, 1999.
Within Ricky's pockets were 2 pieces of paper, both filled with seemingly random letters and punctuation that local police had no chance of being able to decipher.
The FBI is still actively seeking public assistance in cracking the cipher at the time of this writing, since it's believed that the clue to the identity of McCormack's murderer lies within the code.
The head of the CRRU says, "We are really good at what we do, but we could use some help with this one. Breaking the code could reveal the victim's whereabouts before his death and could lead to the solution of a homicide."
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Ed Gein's house. You can take your pick from the contents of Ed Gein's house. It was a literal house of horrors.
He'd reverse the normal process of trash disposal
And instead of taking all his garbage to the dump, would go to the dump and bring it into his house.
The horror of Gein's crimes shocked the world and served as inspiration for numerous equally gruesome horror movie amalgamations of his life. Gein's house was full of furniture and other items that were crafted from human remains.
He knows how to slaughter animals, he knows how to prepare carcasses. He's from a community that's very much into its hunting and its fishing. So at some point, reality and fantasy are going to collide.
It's almost too much to take in. An absurdly horrific and unforgettable tableau of inhuman depravity from one of the most notorious cases of all time.
Ed Gein's farmhouse was the habitation of a literal ghoul, somebody who had been living amidst these horrific relics of human dismemberment. It was a madhouse.
Which of these do you find the most disturbing? Let us know in the comments below.
I didn't mean to shoot. It was an accident.
Who are you kidding? This was no accident. It was an execution.